everybody. Welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy, and today we're here with author L.V. Lane. So thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you and be able to ask you a bunch of questions.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and dive right in. And so for people who are not familiar with the books that you write, what type of books do you write and what type of tropes do you like to include in those books?
So I write mostly fantasy and sci-fi Omegaverse. That's probably what I'm most known for. But they all have a bit of a daddy dom brat, mostly brat or submissive sort of theme going on. So even though I write the odd contemporary, it kind of goes into that bucket as well. So I have written some what would probably be described as hard sci-fi. So I've got 2 books that are hard sci-fi, and I've got some dystopian. But yeah, fantasy is probably the one I'm most well known for. So yeah, I get quite into the fantasy worlds of the castles and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're really good too. The dystopian one, that's your Controller series, right?
Yeah, so the Controllers is probably more sci-fi type thing. Some of them feel a little bit dystopian. So if you've read the first Controllers, which is The Awakening, that probably has more of a dystopian feel to it. And then as you get into the later books, they kind of go through space. And once you start jumping into space, you're kind of probably into a sci-fi, but it's probably not typical sci-fi romance, which is people think of like the big blue aliens. Right. It's not really the big blue aliens. It's actually more military sci-fi.
Yes.
But people who don't read military fiction have read it and said that they enjoy it. So I don't know really what it is. It's kind of like floating around there, something a bit different. But yeah, I love that. That's where I started, was the sci-fi stuff.
So do you? Because I love dystopian. So do you have anything else in your backlist that is dystopian, or that you would describe as dystopian, other than that series?
Yeah, so I've got a few series. I keep writing new series. I get bored with one thing and I start something else. So there's 2 books which is the Darkly Ever Afterverse, which is owned and knotted. So the first one is just a dystopian romance. There is no Omegaverse, no knotting, so that's owned. Okay. And that one is like pretty sort of post-apocalyptic type environment.
Yeah.
And then there's another one which I wrote with, the first book was Sam Hall, and the second book I just wrote on my own, she was kind of testing the water with male female, which she's probably more well known for her reverse harem. So we decided to write a couple of male female. It possibly wasn't the right thing for her to go into, so we kind of parted after 2 books. But yeah, that's is Ryder and Jace, so the 2 books in that series. So that is more dystopian sort of Omegaverse.
Okay, and I have those.
Have you? Yeah. So they're fun little books. We just wanted to write, sort of potentially a series, but we were kind of like, maybe not. We started to. Yeah.
Hey, you tried it.
Yeah.
You tried it. You could get in. It sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder.
Pardon?
Sometimes it's hard for other authors to get out of that little niche that they're in, because I've read a few Sam Halls as well, so she always
she does write exclusively reverse harem. That's really a mainstay, and she does it so well. She doesn't need to venture anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a favorite book you've written or a favorite character?
Oh God, I really like books. Don't make me pick one.
I know. Every time I ask this question, authors are like, "This is like asking me to pick my favorite child."
I know. We all do have a favorite child. I guess there's some which are more dear to me than others. If I was to pick one out of the Prey series, it would probably be Prize and Taken, which feature Prior. So Prior is, to me, the ultimate brat. I absolutely adore her as a character. She's got so much character. She's very imperfect. She does a lot of perhaps, ill-conceived things in her journey with her alphas. But I actually like it. I get a lot of pushback sometimes when I write characters, the female that isn't completely lovable. And she's not lovable. She's quite naughty. And she kind of recognizes her naughtiness and plows on regardless.
Yes, yeah.
I quite like that in the character.
And is that
to a large extent I write about myself. I just like embrace my inner brat and stick it on a page.
That's awesome. I love it. So, and that one in the Coveted Prey, is that 1 and 2 or 2 and 3?
It's 2 and 3 in the Coveted Prey,
Yeah.
but I guess I also have quite a soft spot for centaurs. And if you've not got to the center of my dreams yet, I adore that story. It's got a lot of angst in it, and I think that the push and pull between the two characters is I really love it in that book. It's quite a long sweeping story and it goes over a long time, but it's actually quite dark as well, and I really enjoyed writing that. So the Centaur in my dreams would be another one of my favorites, I suppose.
Okay, well, that'll be what I'm reading later today after finishing Centaur in my forest last night. I'm going for that one. While I'm on the Centaur kick. And like I told you before we started, I didn't think I'd like it. I mean, I was what is this? And then I was like, oh,
it's
no,
okay to like it.
I mean, yeah, I was like, can I suspend my belief for just a few minutes to get into this? And yeah, I did.
I had so many comments on that. I love reading the reviews on that. They crack me up. People are like, do I like this? I might. I'm still going.
Yeah, we read reviews, but only after we read the books. And so last night when I finished it, I went in to look and see what everybody was saying, and I was cracking up looking at the reviews because they were all saying, like, I shouldn't have been into this, but I was so into this. So
he's actually quite sweet. The centaurs are actually quite well. The center of my dreams is not sweet, but the others are quite sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I wrote that title down, so
you're going to go for it as well.
I will.
This will be fun because I'm the alien and I'm the one that reads the, what we call the weird stuff, the things that are just a little bit different. And Mandy is always like, what are you reading? That is so weird. But I love it when she picks one up because then I'm like, now you can see. And she's like, normally you say, I like it. I don't know why I liked it, but I did like it.
just leap into the, but it's like a morbid curiosity. Somebody else is reading, you're like, they're into it. I need to check it too. I need to see. What am I missing out on?
Exactly. Well, the fact that you told her it was angsty, I think that's what kind of did it for her. We like a good angst.
Like angst.
Yes,
there's a lot of push and pull between the characters. It's quite, I like it. It's got quite emotional. There's a particular chapter in it. I won't go into it, but there's a little bit later on, and maybe after you've finished it, we can chat about it. But he's reflecting on things, and I feel so much emotion in it. He's quite, when he gets to it, he gets quite emotional. It's quite lovely. I love it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk after.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where would you recommend someone who's new to your books start?
I guess if somebody is completely new to my books, I'd probably want to learn a little bit about their tastes. So I have a lot of spanking in books, and some of it's probably more extreme with the belt and the crop, and that is not for everybody. If you are into the full brat, spank me, I don't care what you do, I can take it, then start with Prey. If you don't like the spanking and you want something a little lighter, I would start with Traded for Their Pleasure, which is a very popular book. And they're just very sweet guys. They're just adoring barbarians who just want to please their mate. So if you want just a gentle story, I mean, there's a little bit of spanking in it because I find it very hard not to. I think I'm moving on. But it's quite a gentle book. And they're just really sweet guys. They just it's smutty from the start. So you're pretty much straight into the smut in chapter 2. They're getting down to it. But yeah, it's probably one of my most popular books, and it's probably because they're just really sweet guys, and they just absolutely adore. They want to do whatever it is to make her happy. So it's that, and she's a beta, and I quite like that. I write a lot of Omegaverse books, which are, as you would expect, it features an Omega with alphas. But I have a real soft spot for the betas as well, and I really like that sort of, I guess, the challenge that it presents. They're not their ideal mates, but these alphas, just once they latch on their loved one, they just absolutely adore them, and it doesn't matter to them that they're a beta. They don't want anybody else, and so I like that kind of thing. I like the sweetness of the story. I like my smut, but I want a really sweet happily ever after as well.
And the thing, I started with the Coveted Prey series when I first started reading it, and it must have been back in, I don't know, when did that first book come out?
Prey was a few years ago now. I'd probably say 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah, because I started really getting into reading in 2020, and I remember reading it. It hadn't been out for very long, and then I was waiting. Like, I didn't even realize it was going to be a series. So then when I saw the next book come out, I was on that, and then I was, oh, the next book. Like, every time a new one came out, I get all excited and buy it immediately. So I loved it, and I like that. Not all of your books are reverse harem. Some are male, female, or well, male of some kind and female, but they're not all reverse harem. And so for somebody who doesn't like reverse harem, there are books in at least that series that you can pull out that are not.
I think as a reader myself, and as so what you read reflects what you write. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the diversity. I enjoy reading male, female. Sometimes I enjoy reading menage is probably one of my favorite. That sort of, the two men and the woman. I enjoy it to have male interaction sometimes, and I enjoy it not to have male interaction sometimes. And then I like the why choose, and I went a bit crazy on Pound to the Pack. I put 8 men in there, so it got a bit confusing at times. But I was like, what the heck? Let's just go for it. But I think I enjoy reading all the different things, so it makes sense to me to write all the different things as well.
Yeah, I agree, because I read all the different things, and I like having that variety. So I like that you at least have that, especially in that series, which is your biggest series. You get it all in there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ones, and I'm also like, I don't constrain myself on the size of the book. I'm a bit random. I don't really go in with an expectation of how long the book might be. It might be a short story that's really short. It might be, a full-length novel, or it might be a really long novel for me. So I don't really have any so if people like short stories, they can have a short story. If they like a really long book, they've got a choice. But I think it comes down to the number of characters. If you've got like 6 male leads or 4 male leads, I like to give them all their own time and their own backstory, which is you need a longer book if you're going to look at each character.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you share what you're currently working on, or any upcoming projects that you have going on?
So I'm a bit of a flighty writer. I have about 1 million story ideas. So I sometimes write like 5 chapters and then stop. So I have a lot of what I call half-baked stories, but I've settled on one called Tame for Their Pleasure. So when you get a bit later on in the series, we meet these characters in there. So it's a male-female barbarian. It's my first male-female barbarian. I usually write menage with the barbarians, but this one's a male-female. And he is a king of a barbarian tribe, and she is a princess from Hydornia. So Hydornia is more like your fancy castles and lords in their stately homes. So sort of imagine sort of period drama sort of thing, but with the sort of fantasy setting. And he's like a gruff barbarian, and she is an assassin. Well, not an assassin, but her mother was an assassin. So she's sort of been trained as a sort of, she's a skilled spy. And although she doesn't need to use it, she kind of enjoys doing it. So she finds out that a barbarian has been taken in her castle by her father and put into prison. And then she finds out that her father is trying to sell off his Omega mate or use him as a bargaining chip. So she decides that she's going to help free him. Well, he tells her that this is the first couple of chapters. He tells her that his clan king will be coming for him. And there's going to be a lot of trouble. So she decides to go out and confront this clan king who's about to attack her great city. And she basically disables like half a dozen men and injures the rest of them and leaves them all with nervous twitches, because she kind of and then of course the king of the barbarian tribe decides he's going to he needs to deal with her personally. So that's pretty much the start of the book. He's decided to. I don't normally write sort of kick-ass females who kind of can fight and stuff like that. So it was actually quite fun to write a character who can pretty much whip out a dagger and disable him if she chooses to, but she doesn't.
Yes, and you have at least one release coming this summer. The Tavern one?
So yeah, the one that's just been finished. So that's with the editor at the moment. That is a Wolf Shifter book. So that is my longest ever book. I don't even know what went wrong in this one. It's 110k, which is huge for me. I don't normally write that long, but it just kind of kept going. So yeah, that's a MFM Wolf Shifter one, which is So that's fun. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
And I adore the cover. I got a really lovely
Yes.
cover artist who did the drawing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Mandy and I are both wondering when we're going to get the second book in.
Yes, that was my next question.
Oh God, everybody! You know what? I wrote that book, and as many writers who write smutty books, I have a lot of fantasies, which are sort of like, you know, you have them in your head, and eventually one day you decide to write them down. And I have this like sort of weird thing about kidnapping on a train. I don't know what it is, which is how the book starts. And it can go in 10 different directions afterwards. So I could have written that book at the start and it could have gone in multiple different ways. And I finally settled on this one. But it's my worst selling book. It is dreadfully. It does not sell as well. Yeah, it's really bad. The sci-fi never sells as well for me, but I loved writing it. I really enjoyed her character. I loved the gritty nature. I loved the guys who are just absolute arseholes and you want to stab them, castrate them at various points in the book. So I absolutely love it, but it does not sell for me.
No, and I love that you weren't afraid to have like the other woman situation going on there, which is not typical other women, but I'm all for some other woman drama anyway. So I loved that. But you continue to write it. We'll continue to promote it because Mandy doesn't. Mandy doesn't normally read Omegaverse, and she got into that one, and you loved it as much as I did. So
it's really angsty. It's just really the tension and the sort of unraveling of her experiences is quite confronting. But I feel like she's a little trooper there, even though she's like having a tough time of it. You know, she doesn't sit in the corner and cry. She just like, you know, I'm gonna pick myself up with these crazy people, and And
I think too, that I hadn't read the Controller series yet when I finished that, and then when I finished that and saw what I saw at the end, I was like, oh, now I got to go read the Controller series because I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's kind of a prequel. And then somebody said, like, I saw a review. So I do read reviews usually in the first 2 weeks. If it goes a little bit too far down the other end, I get the 1 stars that made me want to go and rock in the corner. So at the risk of not writing, I tend not to read them. I've reached the stage in my career where there's not much point in, you know, you understand that not everybody likes your work, and that's okay. And you move on, and you know, I appreciate that they've taken a punt and read it, even if it wasn't their thing. But yeah, I enjoyed writing that book, and I do want to come back to it. So it'll probably be later in the year, but I have to write some books that have more money in between. To be blunt.
We understand that.
Yeah.
Beautiful Savage was really good. That surprises me that it's like not a good selling book.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be the cover. I've actually flipped the cover and put a different cover on it. It might be that it needed the face of the character on it. It might be just that the cartoon art type didn't work. It could be the blurb. It could just be that it's the start of a series and people don't want to read it because they're worried about the cliffhanger. Yeah. I suspect it's just the book. And I, you know, you come to a point as well where you understand that some books sell better than others. And I can't always put my finger on it. Sometimes I enjoy writing a book, but it doesn't sell. And that's just the nature of writing books, you know, in the romance genre. And that readers are fickle and they choose which ones they want to enjoy. And they promote the ones that they want to read. And they want you to write more of them. And they want me to write more coveted prey. So, I do love the coveted prey. It's kind of, you know, as an English person, I love going out and visiting castles and that kind of thing. So I find it very inspiring to go to castles. But yeah, I do like getting into the dark stuff, but it just doesn't sell for me. And I don't know, maybe I need to split out a pen name. I honestly don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we do. I know we have a lot of readers that when they know it ends on a cliffhanger, they will wait until the series is complete to get into it. And I think that could be a huge part of it too. But it was really good. I do like the Coveted Prey series too, but it was really good. How many books do you have in the Coveted Prey series? Because there's quite a few now.
There's the 22nd one will be coming out in the next month or so. It's when it comes back from the editor. So yeah, that's book 22 in that series.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome.
Like my friend came in. I've got a friend visit today from Australia where I lived for 16 years, and she's only in the UK for a few weeks. And she says, like, how many books have you written? I'm like, 50. She's like, oh my God. How do you keep track of all the people names? And she says, I have no idea. I started writing like a little wiki type thing to keep track of them. But you find yourself reusing like male character names, and you're like, for God's sake, I'm running out of decent men names. And then my beta reader's like, you just called the character my son's name. I have to kind of zone out that you've used my 6-year-old son's name for the main character.
I read a book this past week where the hero was a widower. His wife had died, and his name was my husband's name, and the wife that died was my name. And I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I killed off one of my beta readers' children as well. Like, she said, like, that's my son's name, and you just killed him. I'm like, oh God.
And I think as you have, like, you've written a lot of books, it's bound to happen where you have
killed somebody, sweetheart.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
So how do you come up with these ideas?
My brain is like just chaotic, full of ideas. I have my little phone app where I put all my notes on there. So I write my little story notes down on there. But it's really a case of, like, as I'm writing one book, other ideas come to me. So quite often, like, I write books and people will be like, you need to write a story for the side characters. So quite often when I write side characters, I get into them a little bit more than I probably should do. And then they become their own stories. But also I just have this, like, I've been writing, I'm not a young person. I've been writing for like 20 plus years before I started publishing. So I've had a 20-year period where I just wrote little bits of stories. And that was pretty much what I would do every evening and weekends. That was how I down-tooled from work, how I switched off from work stresses. I would just write scenes and little snippets from stories. And I have a whole folder full of little bits of paper, because I used to do it on paper originally, because I didn't really have computers back then. And, I did do some computing, but a lot of it's just on bits of paper. So I have like maybe 100 story ideas that I could pick up and write. It's just nuts. Awesome. And I don't have enough life to write them all, because I keep adding more onto the pile. Yes. Yeah. Just keep throwing more on there. It's never going to be done.
So you mentioned castles. So do you go visit a lot of castles? Quite like
I love castles. I have visited so many castles in my life. I am like full castle crazy.
Yeah.
I love visiting. I love history. I love ancient sites. I've been very lucky. I've been to China. I've been to Japan. And it just history and culture in general just appeals to me. Like I love kind of getting into sort of, anything really that's just, outside of, the real world. I'm not very steeped in reality. I just exist in a kind of a fluffy world. And even when I'm walking around, I can be in my own little imaginative place. So I enjoy getting out in nature. I enjoy visiting castles. And thankfully, my husband is into that as well now. So he like makes a plan for me, and we'll go on holiday and we'll go and visit like half a dozen castles.
Yeah.
So I like just to submerge myself. Like I'll go into the castle and there'll be like a big, massive, solid wooden door with these big rivets in it, and I just like just touch it and just think about all the people who've been here. And then you got the little narrow passages, and you imagine like the soldiers running up and down it with their swords, and the excitement. So yeah, I love castles where there's been a lot of conflict. Like sometimes you'll go around the castle and it'll be like a folly where somebody's built like a castle and they never ever lived in it, or it just had no conflict in its life, and you're just like, what's the point of a castle? Nobody died here. I need some battling. Yes. So yeah, I love castles and I just enjoy it. I enjoy that. So which is kind of reflected in the books.
Yeah. We've had other authors say you have to come to Rare in Edinburgh, and that's something we've talked about doing in the future. And I'm like, but if we do that, we have to go see like some Scottish castles. Like we have to go see some of the history. We have to stay longer. We might have to take the husbands if we do that, because
it's only fair.
Yeah, it's only fair. So it's something we've talked about, but I love that stuff too. I know Mandy does.
We actually got married in a castle. I got married in a castle just over the border of Scotland.
Awesome.
As you might imagine. So yeah, we got married in Scotland, but we went and stayed there for our honeymoon, and we went to the Scottish castles are very severe looking. They're actually quite often very like kind of cold and sort of confronting to look at, whereas the Welsh castles are probably some of my favorite, because they're just absolutely humongous castles with, as you imagine, like a sort of a fairy tale castle to look. But yeah, definitely do it.
Yeah, definitely. And Mandy's a teacher too, so she gets into that stuff.
My dad is from Czechoslovakia. Well, it's now the Czech Republic, but when he was born, it was Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
And he escaped when he was a teenager and came to the States. But we went back there, and our family has two or three castles, but they were taken during the communist rule, but we got to go visit them. So that was kind of
That's
fun.
amazing. That is really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really quite, I mean, I don't know what the castles are like there, but quite often like the German or the French castles are quite whimsical and turreted. They're quite lovely. And they've all got, it's funny how different countries have all got their own sort of slight style on the castles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also went to a church made completely like out of like human skulls. It was very disturbing.
Ancient people were grim, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were only like what, 7 at the time or 9? How old were you when you did that?
No, I was 10 or 11 when we went the first time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good nightmare time.
Yeah.
It was.
Like, no.
I was not happy. But we're in a foreign country, so it wasn't like my mom was going to be like, well, you can wait in the car.
I don't think that's any better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That would have been interesting.
So my next question is, what do you like to do in your free time? So outside of castles.
So I guess I like walking. So we quite often all go for a walk. We go out hiking and stuff like that. And I also try and do a bit in the garden. So it's not a massive garden, but I just enjoy gardening. I enjoy doing something that sort of keeps my hands busy and is like a physical activity and allows me to sort of go into my head and think about things. So I enjoy gardening. I enjoy walking. I enjoy going to castles and sort of things like that. I enjoy traveling, although I've not done it recently because COVID, and then we moved back to the UK from Australia. So, but before that, I enjoyed traveling and, you know, experiencing new cultures and different things, but also just getting out in nature, I suppose. Don't watch a lot of television. I watch series every now and again. So at the moment, I'm into dark matter. I'm crazy about that at the moment. It's like nail-bitingly exciting. But yeah, I tend to just binge series and things like that. And of course, I read a little bit as well. So I just have my little phases on different authors, and I'll just chew through everything they read. They write it. Yeah, I'm into ice hockey at the moment, which makes no sense whenever I tell people that, but I really like ice hockey romance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, this leads great into the next question. Do you have any favorite authors or a favorite book?
So if I was to pick a favorite book, it'd have to be like R.L. Smith, which is like The Last Hour Gone. To be honest, everything she writes is absolute gold. It's like going into a dark sort of descent whenever you open her books, because they start off as one thing and then they finish as something else. Like The Care and Feeding of Griffins. It's just like, it's like starts out really quick, sweet and cute, and then you're like, oh my God, where have we turned left here? It's all gone wrong. So yeah, she's just an amazing author. I absolutely adore her writing. It's just really quite compelling, just the style of it. But I just like, you know, ice hockey romance as well. So Emily Raff, I really enjoyed her book, which was just like crazy good. So yeah, I'm happy to go from one extreme to the other. Yeah.
It's like me. It's aliens one day, hockey.
Yeah, why not?
You know. Yeah.
So do you have any plans to be at any author signings?
Yes, I've got a few coming up. So they're all in the UK, but I'm hoping there might be one in the US next year, but I'm waiting for that to be announced. So we'll have to wait on that one. So I'm at the British Book Bash in next month in July.
Okay.
And I'm in Edinburgh, Rare Edinburgh, and then Fiction Fans and Bull Gowns next year.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's in, I can't remember where that was now. So it's up north somewhere in the UK.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got a few coming up, and I enjoy signings. It's lovely. Yeah.
I'm a little curious if the one that hasn't been announced yet is this in the US is the same one that BJ Alpha was invited to in the US that hasn't been announced yet.
I don't know which one she mentioned or which one she inferred. I don't know.
I know she's not allowed to say, but
yeah. I'm hoping they announce it soon because I'm really excited about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
All right. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share?
I don't know. I feel like I've waffled enough.
No, you're doing great.
Can't think of anything else.
No, it's been awesome. You're doing great. So yeah, I don't know. That question would probably stump me too. I'd be like,
I've got nothing to say.
Well, I don't want to wrap up without making sure we've talked about everything. Maybe there's something else that you wanted to
No,
share.
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely.
yeah, it's fun.
Yes. All right. What is the best way for readers to connect with you?
So probably the main way would be on Facebook, which is probably where I spend most of my time sort of socially. I've got Facebook and I've got Instagram, but probably my Facebook group is probably the best place if people want to kind of ask questions or just think. I also have like a subscription account, which is with Ream. So people can connect with me there as well, which is mostly about reading WIP. So if you want to read like subscription of whatever I'm writing at the moment. So for example, the book that's with the editor at the moment is going up weekly on that. So 3 times a week. So you can read all my WIP on there and stuff like that if you like. I also put my naughty character art on there. So I have a lot of, because I get the characters done for the books. Yeah. I also get the not safe for work versions of them as well. So that goes up on there as well. So things like that as well. But yeah.
And
Facebook.
What is the name of your Facebook group?
I don't know without looking.
I can't remember
it's smutty, and I'm going to look now because I don't have a clue.
I don't.
Smutty and Omegaverse romance readers.
Because I don't have my computer in front of me, so I can't look either. So
yeah, so it's Smutty and Omegaverse romance readers is the main group, which is my main Facebook group, and there is another Omegaverse one, but that's kind of a little bit smaller.
And you're in a few reading groups too, just general reading groups on Facebook, right?
So my second home, which is not my group, but it's like a second home, is Monsters, Demons, and Nottings.
That's where I'm at.
Goes with what I write.
Yeah, that's where
group. Yeah,
that's where I first had interaction with you, is in that group. So yes, yeah. All right, Mandy.
Okay, well that is all my questions.
Okay, well thank you so much for being here. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.